about all this mess. Nederland's really windy, but who left the door open and just let all this happen? We're in a worship series. 6 weeks. There's only one more week. Amen? Amen. Okay. The point of this series is that there are things in our life that just don't fit perfectly together. There's not things in our life that don't get into the categories of black and white and easy answers. There are things that don't line up in easy rows. There are parts of our lives that just aren't even pointed in the same direction. There are sometimes we feel mixed up inside. Sometimes our community is just mixed up with all kinds of people. Sometimes God seems mixed up to us. And this crazy thing called church, if we are ever so regimented as our pews will eventually get back to, we're in trouble. This needs some messiness on our journey together. And for all those kind of themes, and each of the biblical passages we've looked at, the arrangement of the pews has been a little echo on what the theme and message has been about faith and how we might feel about life and how that's all mixed up together. Now today the pews are as mixed up as they have been over the last 5 weeks. Poor John Callahan has to help carry them in and out. But it's almost as though there's no order here. It's almost as though, other than the back 4 over there and the 3 over here, there's no order, there's no formula to it. It's almost like we all have our different perspectives. A lot of you were trying to sit in the chair back there that's pointing in the wrong direction. There's one up here they're using as a stool. You have your own perspectives on this. For some of us, you get to sit in a solid and comfortable a chair that is you've been connected from that spot for most of your time in this church. Others of us, it feels a little solitary and disconnected and disoriented, unsure. Some of our seats don't even seem like they're participating. There's a folded up one behind Jim back there. It's not even participating. And others of them don't make any sense at all. Some of us get to sit exactly where we do every week, and it feels comfortable. And others of you, some have said it out loud, but a lot of you have thought, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? Yeah, no hands. And that very last sentence, this is stupid. Why are we doing that? Is the echo for today's message. Now, if you remember, each message of these last 5 weeks has been based on a question from the new member class. And this week's question is, what is the role of prayer? What is prayer? What does it do? How does it work? Outside the church, inside the church? Because for some of us, prayer holds our lives together. For some of us, prayer has been a glue for our entire lives. When others of us, it's nice when Grandpa prays at Thanksgiving, but otherwise, it's just the awkward part of a Sunday service. I mean, what is prayer for? Who is it for? For us or for God? What does it actually do? Does it tell God something God doesn't know? Or does it put us in some better sensibility? How can it possibly help? Does it really affect the world or just kind of our attitude? And whatever you feel, whatever your answers about prayer out of those kind of things, some of us know these rote prayers from our childhood that we would never be able to forget. Some of us, it's comforting to offer ourselves in prayer. Some of us, it's anxiety filling when someone says, could you pray for dinner tonight? Oh, God, I can't do that. For some of us, whatever experience you've had, just letting yourself reach towards something bigger, it might not fall under the word prayer, but that experience you're used to, whatever your belief is about prayer, whether it's silly or serious, whether you call it prayer or mindfulness or silence, whatever that positioning means in your life, my sense about prayer at least is that there's no formula. There's no order. I wish there was an order to prayer. I wish it was easy. I could pray and God would do. That would make things easy. But it doesn't work that way. Whatever prayer means in your life, we all seem to have our own perspectives, our own experiences. Sometimes we feel with God that it is a solid connection, and other times it just doesn't seem to fit right. Sometimes it doesn't seem to do anything. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense why we do it. And sometimes others of us find comfort in simple routine or the practice of praying for others. And once in a while, someone will say, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? About a month ago, the last of the many school shootings, a bunch of callous politicians were saying things like, our prayers and our thoughts are with the victims. We'll pray for you victims. As though that was all they needed to say or do. Have you ever been in that tough place of grief or pain or loss or struggle, and someone says to you, in all the sincere ways they can, because they care, but they say something to you, you're not in a place to hear, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you. It just sounds so empty when you are at a crisis. It can sound so offensive even. What does your prayer have to do with my suffering? Either do something, or at least get out of my way, and don't say something so vapid because you don't know what else to say. Thoughts and prayers, like they can help me when I'm in a crisis. If you've never felt that way, then you're either a better person than me, or you just haven't had crisis, or you haven't had friends that'll pray for you. On the other hand, after these politicians were roasted in the media for thoughts and prayers, New York Daily News put on its front cover all the different thoughts and prayers, and then big letters right in the middle, God isn't fixing this. So this Catholic, we'll call him a Catholic social critic, Stephen Colbert, who at his church, he still teaches Sunday school every Sunday for the young kids. 3rd and 4th grade is where he teaches every Sunday. So whatever you know of him as, just think that right now somewhere he is in a room with 8 or 10 third graders. Pray for him, right? Anyway, he said, wait a minute, thoughts and prayers are powerful. He said they are powerful. Whether or not you believe they work like some holy post office route to heaven, something about sitting in prayer affects your serenity. It affects your compassion. Whether or not you believe in it or not, prayers don't even have to fix the problem, but they help us share the burden of grief. Praying prepares us to respond better and deal stronger when the next crisis comes up. And that effort of just giving yourself over to something beyond, that kind of thing shapes us in positive ways, and it shapes the world around us. Thoughts and prayers. What else could help me when I'm really in crisis? And if you haven't felt that way, either you have baggage with the word prayer. It must be that, because otherwise all of us have been in a place where we need people around us caring for us in whatever ways they can. Now, I don't know how prayer works with the world. I don't know how it actually affects God, whether we have our heads down or our hands up or our chest crossed or kneeling or bowing or whatever. Sometimes it seems to work directly. I pray and God does something. Sometimes, God, why not now? I've been praying the same thing for so long, and why not now? We can hurt so much and pray so hard and nothing. Or at least, maybe not nothing, but it seems like an unanswered prayer, or a callous God, or an absent God, or maybe God is working through us in the patience, even through our impatience. Maybe God is working through our waiting to have a prayer answered, that we are inspired to something. Maybe God is working even when we feel so disoriented in our lives. And since we have a disoriented group of people here with so many ideas and experiences and feelings of prayer, my question to you: how do you pray? When has prayer worked for you? We want to hear your stories of prayer wisdom. When has prayer worked, and why do you think that is? Someone tell me a story. Kathleen.
When I was in Nepal, separated from my guide by a mountain pass and an earthquake and a bunch of landslides, the prayers of the people from this congregation and from my family and friends gave me energy to get back.
We're glad they did. You felt supported. And those prayer flags where you were probably fluttering in the wind in many places. Yeah. What other times? When have you had a prayer that has mattered in your life? Kathy.
When my first husband was killed, and I was trying to cope with that, I knew that I needed to sleep so I would have more energy, and I asked people to pray that I would be able to sleep. And I had peace of mind, and I was able to sleep.
In the book of Kings, when Elijah is stressed out beyond belief, God's angel comes down and says, take a nap and eat some cake. Then Elijah wakes up again and he says, no, take another nap and eat some more cake, and then we'll talk. So that's a great thing to pray for. What else? Yeah, that's not it. Michelle. I'm so used to like, yeah.
Before we brought my mom to come live with us, my husband and I both lost our jobs that we'd had for a very long time. And my dad had passed, and then his dad passed. And somebody gave me really good advice, and they said, just pray to be shown the next step. Don't look at the whole mass of problems, just be shown the next doing that, and it's changed my whole life.
That's fantastic. Frank.
Thank you, Mom, for that. Most of us are in the habit of expecting a stimulus response relationship between prayer and action. And I'd like to suggest that everything I and we do in our lives, there's an answer to the prayer. It's not a stimulus response. But if you think back in a long period of time, everything that you had has prepared the way for joy that you know. So that everything you do all the time, every day, every moment is a prayer that is being answered.
Very global perspective on prayer. I've seen Rich pray for people in hospitals.
I, as a young kid, went down Center Ridge Road in Ohio, icy. I came over a hill and there's a school bus and a car parked in 2 lanes. I swung around into the other lane and 2 semis were coming straight at me. I said, God be with me, and the next thing you know, my car's off the road in front of the bus, off the road into a truck.
Justine?
Yeah, I use prayer in the morning to kind of set the tone for the day. Whatever I need to do, I use prayer at night to say thank you for the blessings that I've encountered during the day. And then sometimes in the middle of the day, I always do my Bible study usually about the middle of the day. And at that time, I ask a prayer for anything special that I might need. And I've done that for years and years and years.
Great routine. Great routine. Betty, on that side.
I'm a big worrier, so I lie awake at night, just worried about this and worried about that, and it gets so bad. And then I say, well, I'm going to have prayer, and mainly it's thank you for all of his blessings, and helping me overcome my worries.
That's perfect. Cinda.
This relates to what we're doing right now, but when I did my first liturgy year, I was scared to death because I thought, I'm not that holy of a person, and I have not spent my life in a church where there are liturgists around. I was really scared. And finally it's like, Lord, just let whatever I do guide whatever you want me to do. And that gave me such a relief, that first liturgy, that I've been able to do it again. And I pray every time, for that. Please guide me, Lord, to reveal and help our congregation.
So worry and fear and thankfulness and guidance and pulling us out of a hole. Somehow prayer can do all of those things. Do you know what Pope Francis, I almost called him St. Francis, give him a few years for that. What Pope Francis says at the end of all of his meetings when someone comes up and they talk about stuff, and then whoever it is who leaves, he says, pray for me. To everybody. He says, pray for me. In case you don't remember or you haven't heard little parts of my story, what brought me here, when I applied to be the pastor of this church, I called around to some sneaky people who knew one thing or another, and 100% of them said, no, don't go to that church. It's too small. Nederland is crazy. They said things like, there are interesting people there, but they're interesting. And that scare quote, interesting people. So I came to the interview with really no intention of taking this job. With really no significant intention of taking the job. And at the first meal that we had at Kathleen's house, I said to the nominating committee, since I thought I was interviewing y'all as much as you were interviewing me, I said, why don't y'all pray? Someone give grace for this. And this guy didn't even know he was going to be sitting right next to us. Wes prays like he has been friends with God. Not without understanding the authority, but there's just a conversational tone to the way he prays. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. The next night, we went to the Lutz's house, and Michael prayed. And Michael prays with no fear of silence whatsoever. He prays, what I can tell, to a God that is cosmic, that he has trusted, not really a friend, but something so much bigger than we could ever get our hands around. And I thought if a church could have people that prayed in those such separate ways and be so spiritual, maybe I should listen harder to what I'm doing out here. And that might be the best description of prayer of any of what we've talked about, is listening as opposed to telling God something. When we feel all over the place, when our lives feel like a hurricane has blown everything out of the way, we don't know what to do, the best prayer might simply be to listen. As Paul said it in the scripture you were reading, when we can't or don't know how to reach out to God, the Spirit comes to us. When we can't pray, just being still might be the strongest connection we can have. And all of us want to be connected somehow to God, to follow God, experience God, respond to God's grace in our lives, whatever that might be. And some of us do that with a routine, like Justine said. Some of us do that more as spiritual improvisers. And either when just something seems like it needs a prayer, you throw it out there. Sometimes we're friendly, sometimes we're more holy and pious. Sometimes you can sit in silence. Sometimes you can pray with your actions and your feet and your service. You can pray every day or when you need it most. You can tell God how you feel or wait for guidance. You can call it prayer or meditation or mindfulness or contemplation or awareness or just being. But whatever it is, this practice of trying to connect ourselves with the source of all that is wild, is soulful. It's emptying and filling. And without knowing how it works, many of us have been convinced that works. We don't know how, but it works. And that is a blessing. And for that blessing, we're going to sing one of those old classic hymns that speaks of a man who has gone through such tragedy and still prays to his God.